Hello, welcome back to my mapping series. Just to recap, we are still trying to get this map ready for light mapping. Sadly, a rather significant bug popped up last time the map was playtested, and I will show you what I mean. So I use these bare stick fences in many places on the map, and due to it being winter, they are sunk into heavy snow. So the bug is the following. I'm just gonna crawl under the fence, and you can't, because here we go. Let's go into normal mode. Render. Toggle draw collision meshes. I think it's a soldier mesh, right? Yeah, here we go. This is how the collision on these fences is actually set up. If we look at one that, yeah, here you can see the same thing. That's why you can't crawl under them. The yellow part is uncrossable by infantry. Yeah, so the reason it is set up like this is so you normally, if you place the fences normally on a map where they aren't sunk into the ground, you will be able to crawl under here and jump over here relatively easily, but you can't just run through the fence. That is why it's set up like this for infantry collision. It's basically a way to do vaulting in this engine that doesn't really support it. I think here you can see it best because here the fence isn't really. Here the fence is set up normally. Normally you can always crawl under these and always easily jump over them. You know, that's the idea. Due to them being sunk into the ground, that's not possible anymore. And you can see the problem as well here. Now here you could of course argue that, well, I mean, you shouldn't be able to crawl through here anyway because it's so low. But on the other hand, you would be able to kind of move your way through here in some way. So how do we solve this? Well, luckily we already can. Because Captain Bouquet made a new static set here, or not static set, basically a new static. It's the same static, but with a different collision mesh. So we select all of the same type. Ho! Yeah, we used quite a few of these, didn't we? So that's the RU stick fence bear 5M, 5 meters. And let's see. Can probably RU stick fence bear 5M. And now we also have RU stick fence bear 5M high col, so high collision mesh. Replace. Boom. And here we go. The new one, if you are making a similar map with snow, or you have some other reason to sink these into the ground, this is the one you have to use. Let's toggle draw the collision meshes off. Yep. That should make the map a lot easier to navigate. You will glitch sometimes into these. In my opinion, that's not a big deal because they don't really give you a lot of cover. Now these ones are unaffected because, I mean, you couldn't crawl through that anyway, but they have a lower collision mesh, so it's very easy to jump over them. But that's fine. Or rather, that's actually great. So, yeah. Anyway, let's see. I hope this is it. There were other bugs as well that I fixed, all of them off screen. Many of them were kind of small floating boxes. I didn't properly line up one of the bunkers I straightened out, like the interior didn't match, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, I hope this was it with the small object fixes, and we can finally light map this. So we have light mapped the map on our server, and well, it's a bit bright, as you can see, so it didn't really work out as expected. That said, we looked into it, and we believe that this is due to the colored map being too bright. The Battlefield 2 engine does not necessarily deal well with these extremely bright color settings. So because of that, what I will have to do is generally darken up a bit the color map. Luckily, due to the way I set everything up, that's not even that big a task. We will return to our source file shortly, And as you probably remember, the source file is in here. All right. So this is the color map file, and this is one that we need to make darker. The other ones we will have to take a look at are our oh, here we go, are our detail maps as well. Some of them are fairly bright. I don't think this will make a huge difference. This one is probably fine. This one should probably be made into this kind of darkness. But yeah, this is kind of the main thing I will work on right now. Now, the good thing is that due to the way we have set this up from the start, it is fairly easy to tweak the specific layers that we used, the different snow colors, and we even can tweak them, you know, in on their own to get any effect we want. So maybe we want some areas to shine more brightly and want to leave them a bit more white. Generally speaking, though, there will probably be a bit more blue in here, so let's start with that. For once, I need to, or at first I need to actually get a bearing of what we did here. So we have a color rough here that was added later. Ah, I remember, okay. That might actually be too bright in general, but I want to keep this a little bit more white than the other stuff. Still, we will darken this up and go into colors, go into brightness and contrast, and put the brightness down a little bit here. Let's say we go to minus 40 for now. Yeah. So, and I think we'll do the same with the color mud. Even the mud color is actually very bright with these lighting settings. So we will also go to a minus 40 here. And after that, of course, we will have to check it out if it actually looks better in game. So the color in the forest. I think this we will leave like this for now, because this one is not actually affected all that much on account of being not white. So we will keep that as it is right now. So the erosion is also actually, even though it is gray here and looks a bit grayish, it is actually fairly bright in practice. So we will see, but for now we will put the brightness here down as well to... Oh, the color erosion highlight. What is that actually? Before we fuck with that too much, let's look at that. Let's look at the alpha channel to see which areas are covered. Okay, that seems to be just some kind of detailed thing that is almost invisible. So we will... Yeah, you can barely see that. We will keep that like this for now and go to color erosion first. So as I said, this was the one that we need to make a bit... yeah, one sec. Yeah, that is the one that I meant. That is one that we need to make a bit less bright, I guess. Where do we have it? Contrast. Okay. Okay, put that on minus 40. Hope that's not too much, but we will see. We will see what it looks like once we have it in game, or rather in the editor for now. So now it gets interesting because we have color disturbed snow. Which is interesting actually. So color erosion was this one, sure enough. Color disturbed And then we have color snow. What is actually... Is it color rough? Ah, okay. Interesting. So I thought the color disturbed snow would be, yeah, this is color disturbed. Did something get mixed up here? Or is the color rough the same as the color disturbed? I wonder if that's a mistake, but for now we will keep it like that. Then let's look at the color snow. Okay, yeah. This one is actually very, very bright, I think. And the color disturbed generally as well. So the color disturbed I will just also darken a bit. Even though you can barely see it. Okay. Now, the color snow and the background, which is this one. Here I will be a bit more careful. Namely, I will not just make them darker, but probably also add a bit of a blue tint to them. And hope that works out. And for that, we can actually use the colorization thing here. Where was that again? Einfärben in German. Oh, down here. Okay, yeah, that's a bit of a very blue tint. But if we do like a very cold and desaturated blue tint like this, maybe a tad brighter, but obviously we actually don't want it to be that bright. But it needs to be fairly desaturated so it doesn't look completely blue. Let's do it like this for now. Yep. And let's do the same for the background here or something similar. We will do it slightly different because this is actually, and I looked at it, this is kind of how it's done apparently on, what's it called, on Appledorf, which is kind of the look we want. So we'll do the same thing here. Pull it down like this. Maybe a bit more saturated. Like this here. And okay. Now I'm not 100% sure that this will look cool. Because this is quite blue now, but sometimes you kind of have to try this stuff out. Actually now it looks like the color rough might have to be made a bit darker as well, maybe. But okay, we will try it out like this for now, but I will actually save as this, exported image new, just in case it turns out that this is too much, so we have the old one still at the ready. And then I will export this, put it into the game and test it with these light settings. Alright, it did exactly jack shit. So in my opinion, the problem is not with the textures, it's probably the lighting process after all, because it is now significantly brighter, but, sorry, less bright, but didn't seem to have changed anything at all, really. Which is kind of annoying me at this point, not gonna lie. Alright, I decided to go back to the drawing board, well, not really, but I went back to the original color texture and made it just darker, like night settings dark. Now, this does actually work, like it looks good now, maybe it could be tweaked a little bit here and there, but it's now a nice and bright kind of snowy look that I wanted for the map. But I don't know how this will work when I blend in the trench skirts and other statics. So yeah, I will talk to the other devs a bit if there's maybe another solution or if we will have to do it like this, because to be honest, this seems off. But yeah, we'll deal with that later. Okay, it's a few weeks later, and now it looks like this. As you can see, a lot better. These are new light maps that are a bit darker. Problem is still that the texture is way too dark. So what I will do now, well, for one thing, there's some other small issues with these light maps that will have to be fixed. But what I will do next is there are basically three things where I can adjust how this looks. For one thing, the light maps, which have been made darker, so that was a good first step. Next up is the texture. That is very dark right now if you look at texture mode. I will make that a bit brighter again. And then in addition to that though, the third thing that I can adjust are the light settings, namely the terrain and object sun color. I will make these a bit darker to kind of counteract the terrain colors getting a bit brighter again. And then once I dialed it in, we can finally go to the next step and blend in the trench skirts and do all that fun stuff. But yeah, little update for you, we are still forging ahead. Alright, it's still a few days later, and now we have dialed in the light and terrain settings. I did that off screen. So the light settings and so on, they are final now. The light maps, however, aren't. They will be regenerated with some adjusted settings, and there will also be some changes to the trench skirts because they are causing some problems. I will maybe talk about that later, but generally speaking, I'm not the one doing that. So what I instead will show you now is how you actually deal with the light maps when you do them. Now, generally, when you do them, you obviously won't do them on our server, but using the method that I showed earlier, generating them in the editor, and this is what you will get. You will get these terrain light maps that are just directly in your light map folder in the map. These are pretty self-explanatory. These are the terrain tiles that your map is made up of. You can see the dark areas are where the shadows are. Even in the thumbnail, it's quite easy to see. Here we have a forest, for example. Self-explanatory. Now for the object light maps, you get one light map here for every object. You don't need to distribute these to play the map, but you do need them loose like this, unpacked, in order to see the light maps inside the editor, which is necessary for some stuff, including blending in trench skirts, I guess, to a degree, but also for when you generate your minimap, and I guess also to a degree for the env maps. But generally speaking, you want to get rid of these. So the way we do that in FH2 is we create a raw archive in here, which contains these in case we need to change them later. But this doesn't get distributed with the launcher, so they don't get packed into the map with our mapping scripts. So in order to do that the same way, what you do is you have here the light map atlases, and this is what gets actually loaded by the game. So if you load up the map, the light maps are all compiled into these bigger files here. So all these little light maps go into these files. You can actually see that here kind of. And the game then reads from these files and assigns the light maps to the different objects. This is what you need for in-game. This you don't. So the easiest method to do this is you select all of these. Now on your computer, because you're not on SVN, these helpful green symbols won't be there because, you know, that's only on mine. But you select all the light map atlases and this light map atlas file, which I think just tells what is where. And then you invert your selection. So now you have all the other files selected, the loose editor light map files, and then what you do is, though I did it wrong now, I should put it into a zip file, but generally you just put those into an archive and then you delete them. I won't do that now because I need them still for the editor, but generally speaking, that's how you do it. Alright, so now with the light maps done, so to speak, even though they will be regenerated, but the light settings will stay the same. So what we can do now is create our snowy conditions for the statics, and we will do that by using a texture suffix. So first of all, let's make one test texture for the hardest part, which is blending in the trench skirts. So I have here the exported image file that I use as a color map through the Battlefield 2 mod toolkit. Yeah, as you can see, it's a bit darker now. What we now also need is a texture file that we want to edit. So all the textures we need are obviously in the static objects, because that's what you usually use the texture suffix for. So the way you get to the texture, so we want to change the trench skirts, right? All the trenches we used are in the Russia folder. So we go in here. Now there's usually a texture folder directly in here. We won't find the correct textures in here though, because the trenches are their own subfolder here. So this is where the trenches modular and trenches modular logged are in. We'll go to the textures here. And we're looking for DE textures. These are the normal colors and detail textures. DEB are the normal maps, I think. Well, actually, one way to find out, I guess. Yeah, load map maps. Yeah, those are normal maps. Won't be messing with those for now. Although you can change these as well. So, but what we really want to load up are RU trenches 2 DE. As you can see, you see nothing. This is because there's a black alpha channel here, or a black layer mask, as they call it here. We will just put that here. Let's look at it. As you can see, it's just black. Now this is a specular map. If there were white areas in here, these would be read as reflective, so they would reflect env maps that you put in the map, which we will do later as well. You can do that to create a certain wet effects, for example. I did that on Studienka a lot, although not necessarily with statics there. So let's put that off again and deactivate it for now, and here you can see the actual textures. So these are the Russian trenches, and the thing that is interesting for us is obviously this. This is the trench skirt. So what we do next is we select the detail texture. The detail texture we can find not under objects, but under common terrain textures detail. And I seem to recall we use the Garmisch snow. Yeah, correct. I think that's the one we used. So here you have the black and white or grayscale, I guess, detail texture that we use. So what you do now is copy this one over and put it in here and replace this texture with it. Okay, I put that over now, and as you can see, it's still in a different layer, and what we will do now is we will save this file. And I mean save the source file, the XFC file, and we will put that into our normal, what's it called? We'll put that into our normal source folder here under textures and suffix textures, RU trenches 2 DE. This allows us to change this later, and we will also have to reuse the snow texture for other stuff. So next we will need to get a proper color here. Now the best trick to do that is to take your, not that, that can go. The best trick to do that is to go into your color texture file, select one of the colors. So let's see, the trenches are of course mostly in this area. Now here is where I should mention that, as you can see, the color file is actually fairly complex, even though it's just snow. So we will not be able to blend it in perfectly everywhere. So what we have to do is kind of look at where the trenches are in the game here. For example, I know, I think this is where one big trench system is, and kind of take one middle of the road kind of texture, or color rather, from here. Probably a bit on the darker side, but let's take it from here. So we have that here now. We'll copy over the HTML notation. and go over here. And what we do now is color in this here with that color, and that usually means it's blended in properly. As you can see, it doesn't actually, if you look at it, it doesn't make a huge difference, but it does make a difference. And that should then hopefully make it look good, but we will have to maybe tweak it later. Now another thing you can do is paint exactly this color in the editor around the trenches or in your source file. But this of course makes the area around the trenches also stand out because it's less detailed than the other snow areas. So it's kind of, what's the best word? It's a trade-off either way, okay? So, for now this is enough. What we will do later as well, I think, is these dirt trenches, they have, and also of course under the logs in the log trenches, they also have this dirt color, which I think is this area here, and we might desaturate that a bit, so it fits better with our mud texture in the map. So we might do that later, but for now we will try to fit this in. So, do it like this, add the complete black alpha channel again. Here we go. Save the source file, and now we will export it as a DDS into the correct folder. So for now we will put it into our SVN folder, or in your case your unpacked FH2 folder. We will do that now. Or rather, let's put it into our projects folder first, into the suffix texture folder. That's probably a bit more clever. Not a PNG, but a DDS. Compression DXT3, generate bitmaps. Done. Okay. So, now back in our source folder. Suffix textures, and here we have the new trenches texture, and we will now go over, okay, here we have the details, of course. Instead, what we have to do is put it into the levels folder. No, not the levels folder. What we will have to do is put it into the static objects folder. Here we go. I'm in the trenches folder. Here's the textures. Put it in there. And, of course, I'm an idiot. We have to put the suffix in. So the suffix basically means that at the end there is a code for a map, in this case opmath. So that's my suffix for operation math. Oh no, don't do it like this, copy it over. And then you copy it over, yeah. Almost overwrote the original texture. That would have been actually ultimately pointless, but here we go. And now it's in here. So what we will have to do next is how to load those up in the actual editor so we can look at them. Actually, just as I said that, I noticed there's a mistake here. Opmath needs to be right at the end, so it needs to be after the DE as well. Oops. Sorry about that. Let's change it here as well, so I don't forget. Yeah, that's why you don't drink and map. And here we go. So, first step, you go into your init file, and down here, level settings, custom texture suffix, you put in opmath, or whatever suffix you want for your map, opmath. So that's so the map loads that stuff in game to test it out in game. Next up, we need to get the editor to load it up. Okay, let's see if I can find this. I think I already set it up years ago, but the Battlefield 2 editor folder is what you need. So you are in your Battlefield 2 source folder, not the mod folder. BF2 editor, and then settings. And I want to say init and resource init, and then you go down here. Oh yeah, right. And then this is what you need to add: resource handler dot add custom texture suffix. Woodland is kind of a standard Battlefield 2 one to make the tanks green or whatever. Then these are two of my maps that I've most recently worked on, Flavion and Moto, which is obviously Motovsky Bay. And I had already added OpMass here, so that means that you can load it up in the editor. I will show you how to do that now, and then we can look at our new trench skirts, hopefully. Okay, here we go, we are in the editor now. So what you do is go to Render, Object Custom Texture Mode, and then you go to whatever you want, in this case OpMass. You have to wait for a few seconds for the textures to load in. And let's see how it looks. Well, yeah. And this is basically how that works. So as you can see now, we have the same detail texture here as here. As you can see, it doesn't blend in perfectly here. We will see if we find areas where it blends in perfectly. If not, we might have to change the color. Okay. Okay, over here. Because the main problem is, of course, that the trench skirts now have one color texture under them, basically, and this one has many different shades of color. But generally speaking, I'm feeling like this needs to be a bit darker. So we will grab a different texture from our color map file, put it in. Like, for example, here it blends in quite nicely, and I think from far away it also looks good. But yeah, it's probably better if we make it a tad darker. Although, of course, then it will stand out more in these areas. But generally speaking, that's the feeling I get from here. Other than that, as you can see, all the other things are blended in now as well, which is nice. All these, because they all use the same texture file. This one looks also pretty cool, I would say. This probably needs to be a bit desaturated, you know, this earth texture, and made a bit darker so it lines up more with this really gray looking mud here. Still, I think it needs to be a tad darker. Here it blends in quite nicely. As I said, it won't ever be really perfect, but maybe a bit darker, maybe a bit more bluish even, would probably be a bit better. But generally speaking, it's a nice step in the correct direction. Over here as well. Yeah, here it's actually relatively good. I still don't know what causes this here, because normally these shouldn't cast any shadows. Yeah, over here as well, it seems to be a bit... Here it looks kind of good, but yeah, a bit more dark, a bit more blue. Although I guess here it's actually a bit too dark if you look at from far away. Here it's actually kind of nice, but well, if you go closer it's also too bright. As I said, this is kind of about finding compromises. Okay, here we have the cool big static. What we will do after we dialed this in a bit more, we will apply the same snow texture to the roofs and stuff like that. It's not really an issue here because all the buildings are destroyed. But, for example, yeah, here all these buildings need snowy roofs. Over here, well, here they're actually too dark. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. It's basically impossible to completely dial this in, but in most maps, they are not completely perfect, so it's fine, probably. Seems to be a texture theme here, that's weird. Yeah, a slight bit more blue. I will grab another color texture that is more blue. This looks cool. A T-gun position. Obviously these also need their custom textures, but these will be re-exported then with new textures. Actually over here on top of the hill where the snow is really, really bright, it looks a bit better, but maybe not so much from afar. Yeah, I need to tweak this a little bit. But maybe it's not actually that it's too dark or too bright. Maybe it would be cooler to make it a bit more blue. I think that's maybe the main concern right now. I will go to the hill here and grab one that blue color here, and I think that will make it look a bit cooler. In the truest sense of the word, actually. Other than that, it already looks cool. But yeah, it's actually not so much the darkness, but the color that looks a bit off. We will see. 1 second. Let's go back and do it here. Okay, next one. Let's zoom out here a bit again. Let's see. Maybe, where's the hill? Up here. I think this is where we grab maybe one of the bit darker textures here, so it maybe also looks a bit more bluish. Don't want to go all dark here. Let's grab this one and see what happens when we put that in. Yeah. Oh yeah, first of all, yeah, that is a bit more bluish. Put that in here. And where is it? Up down here. Yeah, that might be a bit too blue, but let's do it like this. Okay. If we compare that with before, it's a bit darker. Will hopefully look a bit better. Okay. Let's see how this one looks. Object custom texture mode, op mask. Yep, I like this. I think this is cool. Not perfect by any means, but I think it now fits the overall color scheme of the map better. I might tweak it a little bit here and there later, but yeah, now it's relatively nice and blue. Cool stuff. So what we will do now is implement this, and doing that by putting it on the roofs as well, and then I will look at it in game. Later I will show you how you actually put that in game for a custom map, because obviously, and we don't do that either, but obviously you can't add it to the normal archive. But yeah, let's add the roofs. I will not do the, oh, you know what, I think I will already do the color here as well, for the earth, I mean, and the roofs, and then we will look at it in game, and yeah, then see that. Alright, so this is my snow texture that I want on the roofs. I put that into a new 512 times 512 file, which I will save in the normal source folder under the name, I think something like snow texture single or something like that. Done. So now what I've done is I have loaded these two textures that I want to replace. So this one is the one for straw roofs. Now these two textures also have special alpha channels with this white data in here, so that kind of means that they have a specular map. So this needs to be also put into the snow. Well, actually, would you see this through the snow? Actually, you know what? Let's get a bit fancy with it. I don't necessarily think I need a specular mask, but what I could do... Yeah, let's get fancy with it. Let's copy over the straw texture for the roof and put that on top of the snow. Then, let's take this specular map, add it to here, like this, put it in here, and put up the contrast. I just want to see how that looks and if it looks cool. Color, brightness, contrast. What happens if I put up the contrast? Because I kind of had hoped. Yeah, this is... the thing. I had kind of hoped if I put it like this, okay. Yeah, now you can actually see these straws through there. And that will hopefully look kind of cool. That being said, let's put it like this. It's very bright, so the thing that shines through is extremely bright. Maybe I need to make this texture a bit darker then to make it look good. We will see how this looks in game. Must make it a tad darker. It also doesn't necessarily look amazing. We will leave it like this for now. Just apply this. Put it down here. Add a black full transparency thing and export it as a DDS file. Actually, what's the name of Russia? Okay, yeah, we will export it as that, as the name of this file with the texture suffix. Okay, I made these new files now, Russia shingles de opmaß and Russia straw roof de opmaß. For the shingles, I just put a complete black, I just used the normal texture and put a complete black alpha texture over it. I just want to, like, the straw roof stuff is kind of an experiment, let's put it that way. So here we have the Russia textures, let's put that in. Here we go, and now we can load it in the editor using the normal texture suffix trick. Alrighty, and this is what it looks like now. So, this is the new... I see a problem here. Is that it... although maybe that isn't even a problem. But you can obviously see the... what's it called? The bump map through it. Or the normals. Question is that a problem? Let's look at what the shingles look like. And it doesn't look too bad, but it also doesn't look like there's a lot of snow on there. Yeah, here on the shingles it's probably a bigger problem. So I will have to edit the bump map as well. Yeah, that's not really my area, but I will try my best to get that done. I have made bump maps before. Probably this one I might just leave like that for now. But yeah, this one is a problem. Or, you know, I mean, if I add a bump map for this one, we will also use it for the snow texture here, I think. Yeah, let's see how we will do that. I will have to look at that a bit off camera. Alright, so I downloaded a new version of GIMP, which I should have done ages ago. For some reason I have fewer tools, but I will deal with that later. And this version under here actually has a normal map tool. Now I don't know if it should be red and green or green and red for FH2 or Battlefield 2 engine rather. I'm just gonna use the standard settings here. I know you have to generate mip maps here. I'm not sure if you have to put it into DXT3 as well. But one thing I know is instead of DE, I will have to rename it to DEB for the bump map or normal map. So let's just do DXT3 for now. Normally you need that, we will just compare. So this is a comparable size, I think. Is that also 512 times 512? Yeah. And that one is 170 kilobytes. My file is 341, so it's not that. So it's probably DXT1 if I had to guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 170. So it's txt1, and I will export the very same file for the straw roof. And then we will copy that over and load it up in the editor again. Yeah, I don't need that shit. Okay. And now this is more like it, I hope. Yeah. Now it looks a bit more snowy here at least, and here as well, so we don't see those weird shingles through there as much anymore, or not at all actually. So the next problem is, and I'm not sure if I can even solve that, is that there's this dirt here on top, this dirt layer, which looks cool on the a roof, but not so much on a normal like snow layer, because that would be covered by the snow. The thing is, the more I think about this, this is not something that I can really solve. Because, I mean, I could do a texture suffix and delete this, because that's in the, there's a special term for that. I don't remember it now, but it's like in a special file, and then they get layered over the normal texture from that file. I could edit that file, but I'm pretty sure this stuff is also used in other places on these HUDs where it needs to be. And yeah, I think, and I kind of feel bad about this, but I think I will have to request this being what's it called? Re-exported another time. Although in that case I probably don't even need to do the texture suffix, because then we might just re-export it with snow on top, which is kind of annoying. I'd hoped to be able to do this the easy way with the texture suffix, but doesn't really work that well. Okay, so that's another problem to solve, but I think for now what I will do is put all these new textures that are made into the beta folder, or rather into the beta archives, and then we will look at it from inside the game for a change. I think that could be cool. Yeah. Alright. As you can see, pretty nice generated, what's it called, shadows. And it blends in decently enough, I think. Probably not in all the areas, but generally, especially in-game, it looks better. Now this is still bugged in terms of light maps. I think this will get fixed. Right now only these wooden parts generate light maps, so it looks a bit odd. But yeah, generally speaking, I think looks nice. Yeah, the roofs are still not amazing, obviously. Yeah, this dirt layer needs to go. Once that is done, I think this will look quite nice as well. At least that's what I hope. But yeah, other than that, I'm quite happy with the look of this map now. Not bad for a game this old. By the way, new static here. Actually, it's what kind of... Oh, there's no snow on here. Ah, well, it's fine. Oh, one thing I wanted to show you, which is nice, the single point lighting generated by 3ds Max. Now we are still tweaking the settings of that to make it look cool. And also this isn't light mapped yet. But yeah, I think this looks pretty cool. This will be a bit more pronounced with the new relight settings. Take a semi-auto rifle here. But yeah. Oh, I forgot to make this darker. Oh, we'll do that later. Or maybe I will completely forget, but yeah. One of the two things. So, yeah, anyway, I think this was a pretty long video. I hope you still enjoyed it. As always, thanks for watching and have a very nice day.